Hello, crafters and artisans, and welcome back to Psychedelic Squid Fiber Arts. Today I'm going to show you how I store my wool to prevent wool moths. First, let's talk about location. I have my wool stored in my craft closet. I have my raw wool and my washed wool that I'm working on the right hand side here. And in these containers I have wool that's been separated into locks and is ready to be washed. For my already processed and dyed rovings, I keep them in these individual plastic Ziploc bags. At the top here, I keep my spun yarn in clear scrapbook containers to let in as much light as possible, and I keep a cedar disc like this one in each container. Notice, my closet doesn't have any doors yet, but when it does, I will leave them open because wool moths dislike bright locations. Wool moths also dislike being disturbed, so I go through my wool stash every 6 months or so to check for moths and to refresh the cedar in and on my containers. For my raw fleeces, I double bag them in these plastic comforter bags with a cedar disc in the first bag and a cedar disc in with the raw wool. For this specific fleece, I apparently used a lavender scented dryer sheet last time instead of a cedar disc. For my raw wools, I use cedar oil applied with a rag. Please note that cedar oil can be toxic to dogs and cats, so don't let them near it. I usually wait a few days before I open up this room to my dogs again. To apply the cedar oil, I put a few drops on my rag and use it to spread a nice coat onto the cedar ring. Then I toss the ring in with my raw wool. Please note that cedar oil can color white wool. I believe it washes out, but if you don't want to chance it, you can use a dryer sheet instead. If you don't like the scent of cedar, you can also use lavender. I'll use another cedar ring in the next bag, but before I zip it up, I like to rub a thin coat on the outside of the inner comforter bag. I also like to zip up my comforter bags with the zippers on opposite sides to make it harder for bugs to get in. Then I do a quick wipe around the zipper area since this is the easiest place for bugs to get in. For my washed wool, I only use one comforter bag and one cedar disc, and again, a quick wipe around the zipper area. For my wool in these containers, I again keep a cedar disc at all times, and I'm going to add a fresh coat of oil to the disc. Before I close it up, I like to wipe a small amount of oil around the edges. Now, I have a lot of wool in plastic Ziploc bags, but these don't get their own cedar disc. Instead, I just do a quick wipe of cedar oil on the outside to deter bugs. It's important to note I'm not applying any additional cedar oil to the rag here, because the smell will quickly become overwhelming if I did that. For my spun wool yarns, I store them in these clear scrapbook containers with a cedar disc. I apply the oil to the disc and check for any signs of wool moth activity. And then I again wipe the edges of the container real quick with a little bit of cedar oil. Then, for the raw fleeces I'm not working on at the moment, I keep them up in the open attic of my garage. There's lots of natural light throughout the day because I have a lot of windows in here. My garage is also detached with no insulation or air conditioning, so the attic space gets around 134 degrees Fahrenheit during the summer, making it unpleasant for anything that might want to live up there. So far, these have been up there for a year without issue, but I'm not sure if I'll have issues long term with them, as I've heard mixed reviews on leaving wool in places like this. Thank you all so much for exploring the depths of your creativity with me. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time.